Proverbs 2:16-19. To save you from the woman who is a stranger, from the foreign woman who makes her words smooth, who abandons the companion of her youth and forgets the covenant of her God. Therefore she sinks down to death, her house, and her pathways sink to the souls of the dead. All who go in to her never return, nor do they ever reach the paths of life. So the first way that Solomon tells his son that wisdom is going to protect you is that wisdom is going to keep you from a bad relationship. Now, there are a couple pieces that we need to pick out of this. First of all, this is very specifically talking about a marriage relationship or a sexual relationship. And the command that Solomon gives here is that you want to be saved from a woman who is a stranger, from a foreign woman who makes her words smooth. Now, immediately, because we are sort of programmed to be super sensitive to racial ideas, we might read the word foreign or strange and think, oh, this is like some sort of racial, prejudice that you can't marry a girl who's not from the place that you're from or not from the ethnicity that you're from. Frankly, that's foolish and that's a modern assumption. And if you think that, you've been drinking the Kool-Aid of our culture. The idea is that you would not go into being in a relationship with someone who thinks differently than you do. That doesn't mean you shouldn't engage different ideas, but that if you're going to create a lasting relationship, a trust with a person or an idea that is from far away, that you haven't had the chance to interact with, to learn, to understand, to live with in a sense of playing with that idea, well, then you're going to find disastrous results. See, what we very often do is we go looking outside of our community to try to find meaning and ideas. And while it's good to explore things outside our community, we have to interact with every idea that we come into contact with from the foundation of who we are already. This is why most traditional cultures, and Christianity also, would say that finding truth or finding meaning is something you must do in a community of people who believe the same things that you do about the foundational principles of reality, which we would call the scriptures. And so while this certainly applies to marrying a girl who essentially you've never met or you don't really know very well, which there's definitely some wisdom in not doing that, this is more about when you come into contact with an idea or a principle that is from a place that you do not know, it would not be wise to buy into that idea wholesale until you've had the chance to really live with it and experience it and find out how it interacts with the other things of your already constituted reality. Now, if that seems a little bit metaphysical to you, that's because the Proverbs are insanely deep. Yes, they're going to talk about practical things like not getting married to a girl that you don't really know that well. But what the Proverbs are trying to help you understand is that there are bigger principles about how you run your life that you need to put into place if you're going to be wise. So this big principle is when you run into something, figure out where it's from and what sort of theological or philosophical underpinnings are trying to drive that idea forward before you buy into an idea. Now, it continues with this picture of the adulterous woman and says that she abandons the companion of her youth and forgets the covenant of her God. So certainly there's an element of faithfulness in this, and that, it would be wise probably not to get into a relationship with a girl who has been unfaithful to previous partners, because that is probably a harbinger of things that are going to happen to you. That, of course, does not mean that every single person who has ever had an affair or ever cheated on a spouse or a significant other is completely a lost cause. The beautiful message of the gospel is that people are redeemed, but we're just talking in the realm of wisdom. In general, it's probably wise not to date or marry a girl who has made a mistake like that before until you can be absolutely certain by a long period of evidence that that is not something that she is going to do again. It says, therefore she sinks down to death, her house, and her pathways sink to the souls of the dead. All who go into her never return, nor do they ever reach the paths of life. A person who is separate from God, which is what this says, she forgets the covenant of her God, is irredeemable by their own effort, right? We have to say that. What we can say is that God can redeem a person by the power of the gospel. But again, this is wisdom. If you meet somebody like this, you have no reason to believe that their pattern of behavior is going to change for any other reason than they interact with the gospel. And so this again teaches us that if you're going to marry somebody, don't marry somebody who's not a Christian. I would actually specifically say don't marry somebody who doesn't believe exactly what you believe about the scriptures, because they are the ultimate foundation for meaning and purpose and theology. And if you don't have that in common with the person who is closest to you, who lies in your bed with you, what sort of unity do you even have in a marriage or in a relationship? So there's certainly some wisdom there. Finally, why is this a woman? Some people get bent out of shape about this. They're like, this is obviously the misogyny of the Bible showing itself and proving that, that God thinks of women as second-class citizens. That's why it always talks about women as the adulterous ones. This is as easily debunked as just saying this is a father talking to his son, and he's expecting that his son is going to marry a woman, and so he talks about women. But I do think we have to realize that this could be about anybody, right? So if you're a woman and you're reading the Proverbs, fine, put a man into that category of what this woman is doing in this text. There's no reason to think that this is specifically targeting women and saying that women are the ones who cause all these terrible things. That's just foolish. But you would know that if you are a wise person and you took time to think about this. That's how to grow up.